Dr. Han Jiwoo stared at her computer screen in the quiet darkness of her office. It was 3 a.m. at the Korean Space Research Institute, but she couldn't sleep. Something about the data didn't make sense, and it kept her awake. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself. She had been studying black holes for 10 years, but she had never seen anything like this before. The numbers on her screen showed that 5 of the biggest black holes in space were behaving in the same way at the same time. The coffee cup next to her keyboard had gone cold hours ago. She reached for it anyway, taking a sip without looking away from the screen. The taste made her face wrinkle, but she barely noticed. Her mind was focused on the pattern she had found. Professor Park Ta-sung, her old teacher and now her research partner, walked into the office. He always came to work early, but today he found Ji-woo still there from the night before. "Have you been here all night?" he asked, turning on the lights. The sudden brightness made Ji-woo blink. "Professor Park, look at this," she said, waving him over. "These 5 black holes, they're moving in the same pattern. It's like they're connected somehow." Tae-sung put on his glasses and leaned closer to the screen. His eyes grew wider as he looked at the data. "This is impossible," he said, but his voice was filled with excitement rather than doubt. Ji-woo pulled up more graphs on her second screen. "I checked the data 3 times. These black holes are millions of light years apart, but look, when one moves, the others follow. It's like they're dancing together across space." Tae-sung sat down heavily in the chair next to her. "In all my years of studying space, I've never seen anything like this. Black holes aren't supposed to affect each other from such great distances. Unless..." Ji-woo typed quickly on her keyboard, pulling up a new set of calculations. "What if they're quantum entangled?" Quantum entanglement. At that scale, Ta-sung shook his head. "The biggest things we've ever managed to entangle are just atoms. But what if someone else figured out how to do it with black holes?" Ji-woo's voice was getting excited. "What if these aren't natural formations at all?" They spent the next few hours checking and rechecking the data. They looked at the black holes from different angles, used different instruments, and ran different tests. But the pattern stayed the same. By noon, their office was covered in papers filled with calculations. 3 more empty coffee cups sat on Ji-woo's desk, but they had confirmed it. These black holes were definitely connected in ways that shouldn't be possible. "We need to tell the director," Tae-sung said finally. "This could change everything we know about physics." Ji-woo nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead. If these black holes were artificially connected, it meant someone out there knew how to control the most powerful forces in the universe. The question was, who did it and why? As they walked to the director's office, Ji-woo looked out the window at the clear blue sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the peaceful view, the universe was hiding secrets bigger than anyone had imagined. And she had just found the first clue to understanding them. What she didn't know yet was that this discovery would soon send her on a journey far beyond Earth, to places where the laws of physics themselves seemed to bend. But for now, she was just a scientist with an impossible pattern on her computer screen, about to share news that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. 2 months after their discovery, Ji-woo sat in the Institute's main observatory with Kim Do-hyun, their best signal analyst. The room was filled with the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep of monitoring equipment. "There it is again," Do-hyun said, pointing to a pattern on his screen. "Every 12 hours, like clockwork. These waves aren't random at all." Ji-woo moved closer to look at the data. The gravitational waves coming from the black holes were forming regular patterns, too regular to be natural. Her heart began to beat faster as she realized what this might mean. "Can you clean up the signal?" she asked, pulling her chair next to Do-hyun's desk. Do-hyun nodded and started typing. "I've been working on a new program to filter out the background noise. Give me a minute." As they waited, Ji-woo thought about how much had changed since she and Professor Park had first noticed the connected black holes. Now, There were always reporters outside the institute, and her phone was full of messages from scientists around the world. The computer made a loud beeping sound, drawing her attention back to the screen. Do-hyun's hands froze over the keyboard. On the display, a clear pattern emerged from the chaos of space signals. "This isn't just a pattern," Do-hyun whispered. "This is a message." The gravitational waves from the black holes were forming simple geometric shapes, then more complex ones, and finally what looked like mathematical equations. It was as if someone was teaching them how to read a new language, step by step. Jae-woo grabbed her phone and called Professor Park. When he arrived 10 minutes later, slightly out of breath from running, they showed him what they had found. "Look at this sequence," Jae-woo said, pointing to a repeating pattern. "It's showing us prime numbers, then simple algebra, and then something more complex. Whatever made these black holes is trying to talk to anyone who can understand the math." Professor Park adjusted his glasses, his hands shaking slightly with excitement. "This is deliberate. This is first contact, but not like anyone expected. They're not coming to us. They left us a message in the very fabric of space." Do-hyun kept working on the signal, revealing more of the message. "There's something else here," he said after a few hours of work. "These equations, they're instructions." Jae-woo looked at the complex mathematical formulas now filling their screens. "Instructions for what?" "I think," Do-hyun said slowly, "they're telling us how to talk back." The three scientists spent the next several hours trying to understand the message. As the sun rose outside, casting long shadows through the observatory windows, they began to realize the full meaning of what they had found. "These aren't just random black holes," Jae-woo said finally. "They're like cosmic telephone poles, carrying messages across the universe, and someone wanted us to find them." Professor Park nodded, his face serious. "The question is, are we ready for what they want to tell us?" Just then, all their computers beeped at once. A new signal was coming through, stronger than before. As they watched, the message changed, showing what looked like a map of nearby galaxies, with one point clearly marked. "I think," Jae-woo said quietly, "they'd want us to come and visit." Do-hyun looked at the coordinates marked in the map. "That's near Sagittarius A*, the black hole at the center of our galaxy. It's like they're inviting us to their front door." As the three scientists stared at the message from across the stars, they knew that humanity had reached a turning point. The universe wasn't just full of empty space and lifeless physics. It was a network of communication waiting to be discovered. And now, they had been invited to join the conversation. Captain Lee Sun-mi walked through the long white hallway of the new space station, her footsteps echoing against the metal walls. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the message, and now humanity was getting ready for its biggest journey ever. The ship they were building was unlike anything made before. They called it Hawking's Dream, and it filled most of the space dock. Through the large window, Sun-mi could see workers in spacesuits moving around the ship's silver hull like busy ants. She entered the main control room, where she found Choi Jin-ho testing his new quantum shielding system. Jin-ho was young for such an important engineer, but he was the best at understanding how to protect ships from extreme gravity. "How are the shields coming along?" Sun-mi asked, looking at the complex diagrams on his screens. Jin-ho smiled, his tired eyes lighting up. "Better than we hoped. The latest tests show they can handle gravity forces 50 times stronger than we originally planned. We might be able to get closer to the black hole than anyone thought possible." Dr. Han Ji-woo and Dr. Yoon Hae-nul joined them in the control room. Hae-nul, their medical officer, was carrying a tablet showing the results of the crew's latest health tests. "The new gravity suits are working well," Hae-nul reported. "They should keep the crew safe even if the ship's artificial gravity fails. But I'm still worried about the effects of being so close to a black hole." Jae-woo nodded, understanding the concern. "That's why we need Kang Min-ki's navigation skills. One wrong move near the event horizon, and no shield will save us." As if summoned by his name, Min Ki entered the room. He had spent the last 3 months running simulations of their planned journey in the most advanced simulator ever built. "I've mapped out the safest approach," he said, pulling up a 3D model of their route. "If we follow this path, we can use the black hole's gravity to help us instead of fighting against it." Sunma looked at her crew. The best minds humanity could offer. Each of them had trained for months for this mission, but they all knew that nothing could fully prepare them for what they might find. "The final system check is tomorrow," she announced. "After that, we have 3 days until launch. Are we ready?" Jin-Ho patted the control panel of his shield system. "The ship is stronger than anything we've ever built. The quantum shields aren't just protective. They can actually bend space around us in ways we're just beginning to understand." "The medical bay is fully stocked," He Newell added. "I've prepared for every possible condition we know about, and some we can only guess at." Jai Wu had been quiet, studying the message patterns they had received. The beings who left these messages managed to create a network of connected black holes. Think about what else they might be capable of. "That's what we're going to find out," Sunmai said firmly. She looked at each member of her crew. "In 3 days, we'll take humanity's first step into a much larger universe." As they continued their preparations, the enormity of their mission began to sink in. They weren't just going to study a black hole, they were going to try to use it as a cosmic telephone, to answer a call from an unknown civilization. The next 3 days passed quickly. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Emergency procedures were practiced until they became automatic. Family goodbyes were said, though everyone tried to stay positive. Finally, on the morning of the launch, Sunmai stood before her assembled crew. "Whatever we find out there," she said, "we're making history just by trying. Humanity has dreamed of the stars for thousands of years. Now we're not just reaching for them. We're going to understand their deepest secrets." The Hawking's dream moved carefully between the strange patterns of light that marked the black hole network. After a week of studying the Yuri's messages, the crew had learned how to navigate these cosmic pathways safely. Jin-Ho worked at his engineering station, watching the quantum shields adjust to the changing gravity fields. "It's like sailing on an ocean of space and time," he said quietly. "Each black hole creates waves and currents we can follow." Captain Sunma studied the map they had built from the Yuri's data. The network connected thousands of black holes across the galaxy. Each one held different pieces of the Yuri's knowledge, waiting to be discovered. "How much of their information have we decoded so far?" she asked Ju-Wu, who had barely slept since they found the first message. "Less than 1%, Ju-Wu answered, her eyes bright with excitement despite her tiredness. "But what we've learned already could advance Earth's science by centuries. Their understanding of physics goes far beyond anything we imagined." Newell had made an important discovery about the network's effects on living things. She showed the crew her medical readings, pointing to some unusual patterns. "The quantum fields around these black holes actually help protect biological systems," she explained. "The Yuri designed the network to be safe for organic life. They wanted to make sure other species could study their discoveries without harm." Min Ki called everyone's attention to his navigation screen. "Look at this," he said, highlighting a pattern in the gravity waves. "The network isn't just for communication. It's also a map of safe routes through the galaxy. The Yuri found ways to use black holes to travel vast distances quickly." The crew gathered around his station, watching as he demonstrated how the gravity paths connected different parts of space. The Yuri had created something like a cosmic highway system, using the immense power of black holes to bend space itself. "But there's a problem," Jin-Ho said, checking his latest readings. "Some parts of the network are becoming unstable. The quantum fields are starting to break down after millions of years without maintenance." Jai Wu nodded, pulling up more data on her screen. The Yuri predicted this might happen. They left instructions for rebuilding and stabilizing the network, but they wanted to make sure only advanced civilizations would find these instructions. "And did we find them?" Sunmai asked. Yes, Jiwoo replied. Our quantum shields gave us the key without us even knowing it. The way we designed them matches the basic principles the Yuri used to build the network. We can understand their repair instructions because we accidentally invented a simpler version of their technology. Hanul looked thoughtful as she reviewed more of the translated messages. The Yuri mentioned other civilizations they encountered. Most of them tried to copy the Yuri's technology exactly. But we created something new, something that works with the network in a different way. The crew spent the next several hours studying the Yuri's instructions for maintaining the network. They learned that each black hole in the system was connected to the others through quantum entanglement, creating a web of information that stretched across the galaxy. This network isn't just a library or a communication system, Sunmai said finally. It's a test. The Yuri wanted to find species that could think in new ways, species that could help maintain and improve what they built. As if to confirm her words, new patterns began appearing in the quantum fields around their ship. The network was responding to their presence, recognizing humanity's potential to become its new caretakers. The crew of the Hawking's Dream discovered their first message from the ancient civilization 3 days after reaching their observation position near Sagittarius A*. It appeared as a complex pattern of quantum signals, different from anything they had seen before. Jiwoo sat at her science station, carefully studying the new signals. The pattern reminded her of the way light bounced off old computer disks, but this was happening on a much larger scale, using the curved space around the black hole itself as a storage device. I think I can translate this, she said, her fingers moving quickly across her control panel. The quantum patterns are forming a kind of universal language based on mathematics and physics. The rest of the crew gathered around her station as symbols began appearing on her screen. The message was from a civilization that called themselves the Yuri. They had mastered the art of using black holes as tools millions of years ago. Look at this part. Jiwoo pointed to a section of the message. They're saying they left these messages for whoever could reach this point safely. They wanted to find other civilizations that could understand and use black holes without destroying themselves. Captain Sunmai leaned closer to the screen. Can you tell what happened to them? Jiwoo shook her head. They don't say directly. But from what I can understand, they evolved beyond needing physical bodies. They became beings of pure energy and information. Before they left our universe, they created this network of black holes as a test and a gift for future civilizations. Jinho studied the technical information included in the message. This is amazing, he said. The way we designed our quantum shields, it's almost exactly like a system the Yuri described in their early experiments. But we developed it in decades, not centuries. That's why the shields work so well, Hanul added, understanding dawning on her face. We accidentally created something very similar to their technology, but we did it our own way without any help. More messages began appearing as the ship's computers continued translating the quantum patterns. The Yuri had left detailed records of their scientific achievements, their history, and their discoveries about the universe. They're impressed by us, Minki said, reading through the translated messages. They left sensors to monitor how future civilizations would approach the black holes. Most species either stay away out of fear or try to harvest the black holes for energy. We're the first ones who came simply to learn and understand. The crew spent hours reading through the messages. They learned that the Yuri had watched many civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy. Some destroyed themselves with their own technology. Others never developed the courage to explore beyond their own star systems. Human creativity and curiosity, Sunmai said thoughtfully, those seem to be our greatest strengths. We didn't just copy what came before us. We found new ways to solve old problems. Jiwoo found another section of the message that made her smile. The Yuri say they noticed our first attempts to study black holes from Earth. They saw how we kept trying new ideas, how we worked together across different countries to understand the universe. They think we have potential they haven't seen in a long time. As the day went on, more of the Yuri's message became clear. They hadn't just left information about black holes. They had left a challenge and an invitation. Humanity had passed their first test by reaching this point, but there was much more to discover. The Hawking's dream moved carefully between the strange patterns of light that marked the black hole network. After a week of studying the Uri's messages, the crew had learned how to navigate these cosmic pathways safely. Jin-Ho worked at his engineering station, watching the quantum shields adjust to the changing gravity fields. "It's like sailing on an ocean of space and time," he said quietly. "Each black hole creates waves and currents we can follow." Captain Sunma studied the map they had built from the Uri's data. The network connected thousands of black holes across the galaxy. Each one held different pieces of the Uri's knowledge, waiting to be discovered. "How much of their information have we decoded so far?" she asked Jiwoo, who had barely slept since they found the first message. "Less than 1%. Jiwoo answered, her eyes bright with excitement despite her tiredness. "But what we've learned already could advance Earth's science by centuries. Their understanding of physics goes far beyond anything we imagined." Hanul had made an important discovery about the network's effects on living things. She showed the crew her medical readings, pointing to some unusual patterns. "The quantum fields around these black holes actually help protect biological systems," she explained. "The Uri designed the network to be safe for organic life. They wanted to make sure other species could study their discoveries without harm." Min-Ki called everyone's attention to his navigation screen. "Look at this," he said, highlighting a pattern in the gravity waves. "The network isn't just for communication. It's also a map of safe routes through the galaxy." The Uri found ways to use black holes to travel vast distances quickly. The crew gathered around his station, watching as he demonstrated how the gravity paths connected different parts of space. The Uri had created something like a cosmic highway system, using the immense power of black holes to bend space itself. "But there's a problem," Jin-Ho said, checking his latest readings. "Some parts of the network are becoming unstable. The quantum fields are starting to break down after millions of years without maintenance." Jiwoo nodded, pulling up more data on her screen. The Uri predicted this might happen. They left instructions for rebuilding and stabilizing the network, but they wanted to make sure only advanced civilizations would find these instructions. "And did we find them?" Sunma asked. "Yes," Jiwoo replied. "Our quantum shields gave us the key without us even knowing it. The way we designed them matches the basic principles the Uri used to build the network. We can understand their repair instructions because we accidentally invented a simpler version of their technology." Hanul looked thoughtful as she reviewed more of the translated messages. The Uri mentioned other civilizations they encountered. Most of them tried to copy the Uri's technology exactly. But we created something new, something that works with the network in a different way. The crew spent the next several hours studying the Uri's instructions for maintaining the network. They learned that each black hole in the system was connected to the others through quantum entanglement, creating a web of information that stretched across the galaxy. "This network isn't just a library or a communication system," Sunmai said finally. "It's a test." The Uri wanted to find species that could think in new ways, species that could help maintain and improve what they built. As if to confirm her words, new patterns began appearing in the quantum fields around their ship. The network was responding to their presence, recognizing humanity's potential to become its new caretakers. The main room of the Hawking's dream was silent as the crew considered the information before them. They had spent 2 weeks studying the black hole network, and now they faced a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. Captain Sunma looked at each member of her crew. Their faces were lit by the strange, shifting lights from the quantum field displays. "We need to decide," she said quietly. "The network is failing. We can either try to save it or let it fade away naturally." Jiwoo pulled up the latest data on her screen. "If we do nothing, the quantum connections between the black holes will break down within 50 years. All the knowledge the Uri left behind will be lost forever. But if we try to fix it," Jin-Ho added, will be giving every spacefaring civilization access to very powerful technology. The Yuri's records show that some species used similar networks to hurt others. Hanul studied her medical readings carefully. The network is already affecting space in ways we're just beginning to understand. If it collapses suddenly, the gravitational waves could harm life on planets near the major black holes. Min-Ki had been quiet, analyzing different possible outcomes on his navigation computers. Now he spoke up. I've run hundreds of simulations. We have 3 options, not 2. The crew turned to look at him. On his screen, he showed them 3 different paths forward. First option, we let the network die. Second option, we fix it exactly as the Yuri designed it. But there's a third way, he said. We could rebuild the network using our own quantum shield technology as a base. It would be simpler than the Yuri's version, but also safer. Jin-Ho moved to Min-Ki's station, studying the calculations. He's right. Our shields work differently from the Yuri's technology. They're not as powerful, but they're more stable. We could create a network that's harder to misuse. The Yuri's messages suggest they hoped someone would find a new way to maintain the network. Ji-Woo said. They left all this knowledge behind because they wanted different species to learn from it and improve upon it. Sun-Mei walked to the main window, looking out at the twisted space around the black hole. Streams of light and gravity made beautiful patterns in the darkness. The sight reminded her of cities at night, with roads connecting different places together. If we rebuild the network our way, she said, we could add safety features the Yuri didn't think of. We could make sure the power can only be used for communication and learning, not for weapons. Newell nodded. Our quantum shields naturally protect life. If we use them as the foundation for the new network, we could make it safer for planets near the black holes. The crew spent several hours discussing the details of each option. They thought about what their choice would mean for Earth, for other civilizations, and for the future of the galaxy. Finally, Sun-Mei called for their decision. One by one, each crew member voted. They all chose the third option, rebuilding the network using humanity's own technology, making it safer and more stable than before. The Yuri trusted that someone would find a better way, Sun-Mei said after the vote. They left us this challenge because they saw something special in how humans solve problems. Now we can prove they were right. 1 year after the Hawking's Dreams historic mission, Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The ship's return had marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. Dr. Han Ji-Woo stood at the window of the new Global Space Research Center, watching ships take off and land. Each one carried scientists and engineers who were helping to rebuild the black hole network. The massive building complex stretched across what used to be empty desert, now filled with research facilities from every nation on Earth. The latest stabilization report just came in, Choi Jin-Ho said, walking into her office. He looked tired but happy. His quantum shield design had become the foundation for humanity's greatest project. The new network is already working better than our best predictions. Ji-Woo smiled, remembering their first discovery of the strange patterns in space. How many black holes have we connected so far? 15, Jin-Ho replied. Each one protected by our enhanced quantum shields. The new safety systems are working perfectly. The network can only be used for communication and scientific research, just like we planned. Captain Lee Sun-Mai entered the office, wearing her formal uniform. She had just finished briefing world leaders about their progress. We received another message from the Arcturian system, she said. They're amazed by how we modified the network. They'd been studying black holes for 1,000 years, but they never thought to approach it the way we did. Dr. Yoon Hae-Newell joined them, carrying medical reports from the latest expeditions. The biological protection systems are exceeding expectations, she said. The new network is actually making space travel safer for every species we've encountered. Kim Do-hyun, who had first helped decode the Yuri's messages, worked at a desk covered in communication displays. Signals from across the galaxy flowed through the screens, each one translated by the systems they had developed. More civilizations are joining the network every month, he reported. They're all following our safety protocols. The quantum shields are becoming the universal standard for black hole navigation. Kang Min-ki entered last, bringing star charts showing the growing network of safe travel routes they had established. We've mapped secure paths to 30 different star systems, he said. Using our version of the network, ships can travel safely through regions that used to be too dangerous to approach. Sun Li gathered them all around the main conference table. In the center, a hologram showed the growing web of connected black holes, each one marked with pulsing lights that indicated its status. The Yuri left us their knowledge because they saw something special in humanity, she said. They saw how we solved problems differently, how we found new ways to use old ideas. Now we're proving they were right to trust us. Jia-Wu looked at her friends and colleagues, remembering their journey. We didn't just copy the Yuri's work, she said. We made it better. We made it safer. And we're sharing it with everyone who wants to learn. Through the window, they could see another research ship preparing for launch. Its quantum shields gleamed in the sunlight, ready to explore more of the universe's mysteries. On its side was the new symbol of Earth's space program, a spiral galaxy with a black hole at its center, surrounded by a protective shield. Tomorrow, I'll lead our first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Scientific Council, Sun Mai announced. We'll share everything we've learned about improving the network. Earth isn't just part of the galactic community now. We're helping to guide its future. As the sun set outside, painting the sky in beautiful colors, the team that had changed humanity's destiny continued their work. The most famous black holes in the universe were no longer just mysterious objects in space. They were doorways to a future that humanity had helped create, markers on a road that led to the stars.